this screencast is going to show you how to multiply decimals. So we have covered this a little bit in class before through our warm-ups, but basically what you do is you multiply without the decimal point, and then you're going to reinsert the decimal point into the correct spot once you have your final product or answer to the multiplication problem. So you'll see our algorithm for multiplying decimals is listed below. We're just going to, like I said before, multiply using traditional multiplication. Do not line up the decimal points when you're multiplying decimals, so it is a little bit different than adding and subtracting decimals. And then finally, when you get your final product, you're going to place the decimal point back into the final product. And basically what you do is you count up how many decimal places there were in the 2 original numbers or 3 original numbers, and that's how many places should be in your final answer, or how many numbers should be behind the decimal point in your final answer. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few examples. Our first example is 12 times 1.4. So the first thing that I'm going to do is rewrite this so that my numbers are stacked one on top of the other. Notice once again I'm not aligning my decimal points, because really if I look at this problem I'm multiplying 12 times 14. Okay? So you don't have to worry about the decimal point until your final answer. So we're going to go ahead and go through and multiply. So 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 1 is 4. Drop down to line 2 and make sure I put my 0 as my placeholder. 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 1 is 1. I go ahead and add. I have an 8, a 6, and a 1. I can see that I have one place behind the decimal, so I'm going to move my decimal point in one space, meaning my final answer should be 16.8 or 16 8/8. In my second example, I have 2 decimals that I'm multiplying this time, so I'm going to once again stack my numbers. So I have 2 33/100 times 7/10. Notice once again I'm lining up the numbers, not the decimal points. So I'm lining up the first number, second number, and so on. And then I'm going to go through and multiply. So I have 7 times 3 is 21, carry my 2. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 2 is going to get me to 23, carry my 2. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16. You don't have to go through and do anything with the 0, because you're just going to get zeros whenever you multiply times a number. So then we're going to go ahead and look at our place value. So we have 1 decimal point here, and then we have 1, 2 here, giving me a total of 3 decimal places behind total. So I'm going to move my decimal point in 3 spaces in my final answer. So my final answer would then be equal to 1 631 thousandths. Next example is looking at a decimal times a whole number. So, like I've said before, align the numbers by stacking them. So I have 5 61/100 times 2. So I'm going to do 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 6 is 12, carry the 1, 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. And then I can see that I have 2 numbers behind the decimal point. I only have a decimal in one number, so I'm going to go ahead and add my decimal point back in and move it in 2 spaces, giving me a final answer of 11 22/100. So to wrap it up, looking at multiplying decimals, once again we are multiplying without the decimal point, just as you would in any other multiplication problem. And then finally at the end, once you have a final answer, that's where you're going to reinsert the decimal by counting in as many spaces as there were originally in the 2 numbers that you're multiplying together.